All right, how you guys doing today? We're actually gonna hop into the reading of, not the reading, the review of First John chapter 4. We bringing it back. We are back in John after a whole hiatus. The first things first, I would love to make sure you like the video, hit the likes at full screen, scroll just a little bit, like the video, full screen it back up. You feel me? All right, so last time we left off in verse 4, I believe. So verse 4 says, "Ye are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world." So this is honestly pretty self-sufficient, right? We're of God. Now, first, the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 12, will tell you he gave everyone the choice to be children of God. So when we accept Jesus Christ and we're baptized with the Holy Spirit, that is when we are elected as children of God. Not to get into election or pre-election or predestination, whatever the case is, right? But that is the moment we become God's true children. Before that, we are still image bearers of God, which is a distinction that I think is important to make, because every single human is beautiful because we are made in God's image. And even when we're reading through Genesis, right, we could see in chapter 1 that it says, "Let us make man in our image." Who's our image? In God's image, the God's image, right? And that's plural, kind of. Plural in a sense of God being three in one, right? The multiple figures of God and the images that we portray that are of him and in his likeness, which is beauty, right? So, we are God's children by choosing Jesus, but before that, we are image bearers still of God. Right now, we are image bearers of God, who is our Father. So anyway, we are of God, little children, and have overcome them. Who is them? The spirits that don't confess Jesus Christ, the ones that are evil, the ones that are plaguing us, the ones that want every bad thing that can happen to us to happen to us under the guise of it being good or positive, right? Under the guise of you saying, "Oh, I'm doing all these things that are making me feel good," yet spiritually they're bad for you. So overeating and gluttonous eating may make you feel good. However, spiritually, it should make you feel bad, but it won't make you feel bad, and we'll touch on that a little later. However, you will be reaping physical consequences such as joint pain, bone pain, negative health effects, risks for things like diabetes and all that from stuff like overeating, or gluttonous eating. And that's just one example. And then you take things like cursing. That may shut the door from job opportunities. You may be a funnier person because you curse. You may be a more likable, more relatable person because you curse. But there are people that are going to form opinions about you. Some people may like you more for that, and some people may be turned off on the fact, like, "Oh, that guy's a little too vulgar." Like, obviously you wouldn't go into a job interview and curse. Why? Because that's not seen as the most professional thing that you could be doing in that circumstance. However, as soon as you leave that job, you right back to Sailor Man, you know? And at some jobs, a lot of jobs, they may Google you upon an interview or upon resume acceptance. And if they see that you're on social media promoting X, Y, and Z, or saying X, Y, and Z, they can disqualify you from their job pool, certainly because of things you may said or did, right? So anyway, we've overcome these things that are the world, these spirits that don't confess Jesus, right? And we try them, like it says in verse 1, to see if they are of God. And why do we overcome them? Because greater is he that is within you than he that is in the world. And being children of God means that God is now living within us, changing our mind and renewing our hearts, right? And greater is he, capitalize that first he, than the he that is in the world. And the he that is in the world is the devil. And we get into that a little bit more with verse 5. And even how I said that, you reap these consequences. They are of the world, says verse 5. Therefore, speak they of the world, and the world hears them. And Pastor Paul brought up a whole slew of verses. And actually, a lot of them I would like to bring up because they're useful. And one of those verses that Pastor Paul brought up in the sermon is John. How fitting. John that wrote the gospel, John that wrote the epistle, right? He continues these types of thoughts. He says to them, and this is Jesus speaking, "You are from below, I am from above. You are of this world, and I am not of this world. Why do you not understand what I say? It's because you cannot bear to hear my word." Right? They don't understand. Speaking as the world speaks means you hear as the world speaks. The words mean different things. They're said in different ways, and they carry different connotations. Meaning, when you are transformed by God, you become a different person, right? Your heart's renewed, your mind's changed. And because of that, it shifts the way that you hear, the way that you speak, the way that you just are in general, the character and the nature that you have and that you bear and that you show to the world, right? Right. And it says, they are the world, they speak of the world, and the world hears them. Basically saying they do what the world wants, and the world receives them into their own company. And when the world receives you into their own company, it's a mutual echo chamber of you do this, you get this, you do this, you get this, you are this, you get that, you know? And it's that repeated cycle. They benefit the world benefits them in return. And it's different from what we got. We go against the world, so we don't get the world's benefits. But we benefit God, so we get God's benefits, right? And that's that love that he has for us. In verse 6, we are of God. He that knows God hears us. This Holy Spirit that's living inside of us. He that is not of God, well, that's the Holy Spirit, but it's also talking about these outward people, right? So people that know God is going to hear us. And that goes back to chapter 1 and how it talked about this brotherhood that we feel is evidence that we are saved, and evidence that we have real community, and evidence that the Holy Spirit is working in our lives, right? So we're of God, we're his children. He that knows God hears us, and he that is not of God cannot hear us. And that's where we get that verse that says, where Jesus is talking about, you don't understand what I'm saying because you're not of me. I'm from up there, you're from down here. And even though you're from down here, you can be from up there. You just didn't choose to do that, so you don't get it, right? You ain't having that faith, you ain't having that belief, you don't get it. Right? So he that is not of God cannot hear us. They can't understand. All we can do is pray for those people when they want to talk about, when they want to slander our religion, when they want to do all this, right? It's not a single argument you could spin that would make somebody say, you know what? God's real. I believe in God, and like change their life. It's not an argument you can do. It's got to be one, on their own accord, or two, it's got to be experimental. Sorry, I didn't mean experimental. I meant experiential. God has to change their life. And the only thing you can really do, right, and it's a grand thing, a theme of evidence behind it, is the people that knew you from before you were changed see you living the way you live in now. That's the experientiality, right? It didn't happen in their life, so to speak, right? But that's something that they can see, that they can say, he was like this, claims to have met God, and now he's like that. And why is he happier? Why is he more joyful? Why is he more patient? Why is he more loving? Why is he somehow a better person than me? Because he met this God? Maybe. And then maybe they want to try for themselves, or maybe they don't, you know? But it's up to us to pray for them and continue talking about how God changed us. Because you're not going to tell them, like, because they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, Jesus is real. And, like, you're not going to change their mind that way. Trust and believe. I done tried my hardest. But all I know now is that the way I am, and the way I act, is because God has had an influence in my life. When before, I know for dang sure, I'd be yelling, I'd be screaming, I'd be fighting, I'd be cursing, I'd be mad all the time. However, now I see myself as a patient individual who can withstand a lot of mental turmoil and physical turmoil as well, who prides himself on his discipline because of what God has done for me and what he will continue to do for me, because I love him and I can only attempt to love him as much as he loves me and give that back to him, right? So hereby we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of error, because we can discern, we can judge these things rightly, because we've overcome the devil and his influence and the demons of this world, and we have turned away from the hand that the world feeds us with, you know, and we turned instead to God's hand. All right, that's gonna be the end of the video. Hope you guys have yourself a fantastic rest of your day. Peace.